Rumors. Every D&D players know what a rumors table is. You sit down at an inn, you buy a round, the DM rolls a die, and you get a piece of information for the adventure ahead. They could be true, they may be false, who knows, right? And it is one of the foundational tools of old school play. Well, T1, the village of Hommlet, doesn't have a rumors table. Gary left the rumors table out entirely. And what he put in its place instead of the rumors table is the reason Hommlet still teaches DMs something that most published adventures never figured out. And today we're going to be talking about that. So you guys, welcome back to the DM and Friends. I am DM Angelo, and this is our 5th episode in my deep dive on the Sandbox adventure of the Village of Hommlet. B2, Keep on the Borderlands, came out in 1980, 1 year after T1. It has a formal rumors table. You roll a die, you get a piece of information, some of it's true, some of it's false. Clean, efficient, easy to run. That format became the gold standard for starter modules moving forward. Well, Gary in T1, that was published a year before, made a different choice. Instead of a table, every piece of information in Hommlet is attached to an actual person in the village. To learn about the Moathouse, you don't roll a die. You talk to somebody, and what you learn depends entirely on who you talk to, and why they're telling you and what they actually know. So in the DM notes, Gary writes this huge, and it's just a sentence, it's a huge piece of information. And he says, the persons that are met at the inn, along the road, and so forth, are you, DM, for the Dungeon Master is all. Monsters, NPCs, the gods, everything. Play it to the hilt, he says. Do it with flair and wit. So he says that every NPC is you, and every NPC has something to say, something very specific to say. That design choice means your players' actions in the village determine what they know going into the dungeon. They are not passive recipients of a random roll. They are making decisions about who to trust and who to talk to before the first monster ever even appears. So let's talk about what the NPCs actually know. And we're going to walk through some information sources of the module. Not a table, but a network. So Spugnoir, right? And I know people pronounce it different, but he is at the inn. He is a 2nd level magic user who has learned that a warlock was once housed at the ruined Moathouse, right? And Gary writes he plans to quietly search the ruins and get what he can. He will accompany the party if offered all scrolls found. His information about the Moathouse is true. Right, and there was a magic user there, but his motive is entirely self-interest. He has partial information. He wants specific loot, and he'll shadow the party if they don't bring him along. So let's talk about Cobal and Turuko, the hulking fighter and the monk in room number 9 of the inn. Gary writes that Turuko knows there are monsters and treasure at the ruined Moathouse. His plan, travel with the party, hang back from the fights, and then rob the survivors on the way home. Their information is true, but their motive is murder. And information that is accurate can still be given by people who want you dead, right? So very interesting dynamic with those two guys. So let's talk about Zert, right? So the temple spy in room number 1, right? We talked about him actually being a temple spy. Well, he will tell the party the Moathouse is a good place to look for treasure. True information. given by, and this is given by someone who reports back to Larenth, right? He wants them to go. He will go with them and betray them the moment the opportunity appears. Pretty crazy, huh? Let's talk about Burne. Burne in the tower, right? So Burne and Rufus. Well, let's just specifically talk about Burne. Well, Gary writes he is conscious of his duty to protect the village and watch for evil. He is concerned about bandit activity in the area. He is trustworthy, has genuine knowledge of the surrounding lands, but he charges for his services. Information from him is reliable and costs something. So let's talk about the one and only Elmo. And he's at the inn usually. He presents himself as a slow, half-drunk, simple person. His information about himself is false. Undercover, he is a 4th level ranger and the Viscount's agent. Any information that Elmo gives a party about his own capability is deliberately wrong. Once trusted, however, his information about the area is solid. So, same destination, the Moathouse, pointed to by Spugnoir, Cobal, Turuko, Zert, and Burne. 5 different sources with 5 different motives and 5 different angles on the same true fact. That is not a rumors table. That is a living information network that the party's choices about who to engage shape, what they know and what danger they're inviting into the adventure. 4 categories of information, none of them labeled at all. True and reliable, right? So Burne, Rufus, Elmo, once trusted. You're giving accurate information about the area. The module key itself gives accurate information to the DM, and that is a baseline, right? So another one is true but self-interested, right? Spugnoir, Cobal, Zert. What they say about the Moathouse is accurate, and what they want from you is not what it appears to be. So how about buried, right? So buried information, and this one matters. Gary writes in the church entry that Calmert will tell characters if they ask that the trading post sells ordinary water as holy water. That information is not the trading post entry. That's buried in the church entry. Accessible only to players who talk to the cleric. So players who only visit the traders never learn that they've been selling fake holy water. Gary designed that as an information trap. If you check multiple sources, you find the lie. If you don't, you carried it into the dungeon. So the 4th one is environmental, right? So he puts clues, our environmental clues that you could claim as being rumors, right? The boot prints at the Moathouse gate, the trail of blood in the torture chamber, the gnome in Lubash's pantry, who will tell you exactly where the gnoll, what the gnolls did to him and where they are. The merchants who can describe what Lubash's, that's the ogre, his operation looked like. This is information that doesn't come from talking. It comes from looking, right? And from rescuing people who are there. Gary rewards players who pay attention to what the dungeon itself is telling them. So in T1, information is not given. It is found, and where you find it determines how reliable it is and what it costs you. Gary writes in the DM notes, he says, change the map of Hommlet as the game progresses. Note any places which are destroyed, add new ones for any persons you have moved into the place. He is explicitly telling you to build on the module. So let's talk about how the edition seeds the fit that, what Gary built. Using his own method, not a table, but a person. So 4 types of rumors to add, all attached to specific NPCs, right? So true and verifiable, right? So add information that points accurately to something real. The Carter, okay, from Area 14. He dislikes the traders and doesn't know why. Well, that's already in the module. You can extend it. The Carter noticed a wagon leaving the traders inn, the traders barn late at night without the driver he recognized. True. Points towards the raiding operation, right? So maybe they follow it and they find out that that's Laren's operation where he's doing raids on caravans. Available only to players who talk to the Carter, who almost nobody visits in Hommlet. How about true but outdated, right? So Black Jay from Area 19, is friendly with the elves of the Northwest. He might know that a patrol passed through a month ago. And found fresh tracks near the Moathouse. Information that it was accurate then and is still pointing in the right direction, but the situation has changed since. So let's talk about false, from evil NPCs, right? So Ranos at the trading post might volunteer that the Moathouse is just rats and bats, cleared out years ago, not worth the walk. Actively steering players away from the Moathouse, from his employer's base of operations. True only that there are rats, but that rumor is designed to misdirect. So let's talk about partially true. Ostler Gundigoot, the innkeeper, right, he doesn't gossip, but he has watched the village for years. He's an integral part of the village. He might note that the merchants whose goods pass through now seem to leave with lighter loads than they arrive. True. Maybe he's heard of things that, these are stolen goods. He's not naming the traders. A player who asks the right follow-up question gets closer to the answer, maybe. In every case, attach the information to a specific person. Give that person a specific reason to have, it, and make it require some kind of engagement from the player, not just a dice roll, or you go to the Carter and this is what information you found. Role play it, and that's what Gary's method was. The DM craft lesson. 3 things this episode will change about how you run information in any sandbox. And it doesn't have to be this one right here, the ultimate sandbox, but in your own sandbox. So number 1, stop giving information for free. In most published adventures, the box text gives players what they need. In T1, players have to earn it by engaging with the world. Talking with Spugnoir, his knowledge is going to cost him the agreement with the scroll for shared scrolls. Burne's knowledge is going to cost coin, and so on and so on. So stop just rolling the table. Stop just make the players earn that information. Second, build every NPC with one thing they know, one thing that they'll lie about, or one thing that they won't say. That structure is in every major NPC in T1. And if Gary never wrote it, and Gary never wrote it as a formula. Gundigoot knows about the secret cellar below, but he will say nothing. Elmo knows that he's a ranger and lies about it, right? Giroux knows the temple isn't gone. And will tell you and tell you if you contribute to the needy. Apply that to your own NPCs. Third, use the environment as an information source. Boot prints, trails, blood trails, things like that. Things that they will find. It's not a specific rumor, but environmental information is huge. Make sure you do that in your sandbox. Gary didn't need to write a rumors table because the village itself is a rumors table. You know, every building is an entry. Every NPC is a role. The players are the ones who choose which dice to pick up. So quick table story from my Hommlet Dark campaign. I'm going to put a link up here to the video I did for my formula and how I create rumors, which is a 3-3-2-2 formula. So check it out. But I created a quasi rumors table for my game, and I'm going to read some of these to you guys. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to read some of them, and I'm going to show you where I actually use them and what NPC was talking with him. So this is a true rumor. Bandits are camped south of Hommlet. So that was a rumor that Burne had information on. Okay, so and there's a bandit camp very, very far south from Hommlet. Okay, he knows the area very well. Another rumor here was Rangers of the Gnarly are patrolling nearby. So that came from Jaru if you make a contribution. Okay, here's some flawed ones, right? And this goes right along with it's really essentially the same rumor that Spugnoir had, which was there was a great wizard in the Moathouse, right? So I used that rumor from a random person in the village, right? This is a rumor that's flawed. It says an ogre is eating farmers' sheep, right? So that rumor came from a farmer, right? So the trader's post is overpriced, but the owners are trustworthy. That came from another random villager, right? That was in the inn of the Welcome Wench, just talking. Here's an outdated one that I use. An army has massed against the Temple of Unlabeled. Obviously, we're talking about the Battle of Emery Meadows. Outdated, long ago, right? And here's a very false one. And this is a Prince Thrommel has returned, seen riding in the night, right? So that was a totally false rumor. But you can do stuff like that in your game. You can create, if you want to create a rumor table, but what I recommend you do is attach it to an NPC on there. Don't just roll randomly. All right, you guys, so a recap of this video. T1 has no formal rumors table. Gary replaced it with information keyed to specific individuals who your players talk to and determines what they know. It's not an oversight. That was the design principle. Number two, the information in T1 is not neutral. Accurate information comes from NPCs with good motives and NPCs who want and NPCs who want to rob you. Buried information rewards players who check multiple sources. False information like from Zert and Ranos is designed to protect the Moathouse. The network is the adventure. Number three, when you add to Hommlet, add by Gary's method. Attach every piece of information to a specific person. Give that person a reason to have it, and make the player work for it. Make the players work for it. So you guys, next week, the NPCs, I'm going to go through all the NPCs in the Inn of the Welcome Wench. We've covered the inn as a setting, and Elmo as a spy. Next week we're going to go through every named guest that Gary put into those upper rooms and talk about what each of them is actually doing in the village of Hommlet. So drop your information, architecture stories in the comments. I know a lot of you guys have ran this, and I know you all have opinions on this. I want to hear your guys' stories. So and tell me about the moment that a player figured out something was wrong because they talked to the right person. All right, you guys. Well, thank you genuinely for sticking around. This channel exists 100% because enough of you decided the old way of doing things is worth defending. I am DM Angelo. Keep gaming. This is the DM and Friends. Take care of each other, guys. See you on the next one. All right. Bye-bye.